Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Creator's Mind. We're on to episode 8 now, and this one's actually a pretty awesome one. So, the topic today is how important is creating chase in TCGs? So, let's just talk about chase for a second. Chase is what we refer to as the cards you pursue, the cards you chase after in a set. They're the ones that are either, the ones that you want the most, basically, or the highest rarity ones, or the hidden ones, the ones that the variations, the alt arts, the special borderless ones, the special foil treatments, the serialized cards, those are chase. Those are the ones that people want. They're typically the cards that are more desirable, and as a result, those are typically the ones that will feed into that concept of EV, of estimated value. So when people in the community, collectors, investors, players, when they speculate on a box, or on a booster box, on a product, they speculate on the likelihood, the lottery aspect of opening those super chase cards. So when it comes back around to this question, how important is creating chase in a TCG? It is massively important. It is very crucial to the success of a trading card game. Hence the whole concept of a trading card game. You got to have cards that you're going to want to trade with your friends, trade with other players, trade with collectors, whether you're trying to, bling out your deck, or collect all of your favorite card, or rarity hunt all the top rarities in the set, or trying to get every card in the set and complete a master set. Those are all things that are elements of chase. And essentially, that's one of the backbones of a TCG. That's why we all crack packs. That's what we're all hunting for those big hits, those oh wow moments, those moments where ultimately it brings everybody together. Everyone is in a flurry to open product, whether that be on release day, pre-release day, cracking an old set that's now out of print. There is chase. There is desire. There are cards in that set that people ultimately really are hunting for. So it is extremely important to build and create chase cards in TCG. However, there's a caveat to that. It is very important as a game developer and a game creator to create chase and therefore inherent value into the product, into the set, to make the set desirable to open and desirable to be carried by stores. However, there's a delicate balance there, like with everything. Just like the old adage, everything in moderation, it's very crucial when it comes to creating chase. Because we have this model that we like to live by here in the studio, is if everything is special, nothing's special. So you can't just give everything a special foil treatment. You can't just make a crazy amount of chase cards in a set and just expect, well, that set's got to have the most value in it. Value is found in many ways. Value could be in artwork. Value could be in foil textures. Value can be in serialization of cards. But value at its base is considered valuable to the community that plays the game. Because if those cards, no matter their rarity, are extremely sought after, very commonly played, and used in the metagame, or used as integral pieces in any competitive deck, or even in multiplayer or casual play at any high rate, that creates inherent value in those 1, 2, 3 handful of cards, which creates a different type of chase. So This is where, as a game developer and a game creator, you have to be very mindful of this. And you really need to approach it as the chase factor in a game is not because you made the most bling, you made the most sought after cards, you made the most crazy, flashy, amazing, limited, one of one things. Those are all excellent, and those are inherent chase, and that's collectability that you can bake into your product. But chase ultimately comes down to, ultimately perfectly crafting your set. Building the cards that players want to play with. Building the cards that are integral to the development of your characters, of your story, and that push the game along. Making a powerful card or introducing a powerful character, but not locking it behind a certain rarity. Maybe you want to put in an influential character or an influential place or just an important part of your storyline, an important part of your game. And even if you want to put it at uncommon, put it at a rare. It doesn't need to be flashy and foily. You can make a variant of that for sure. Doesn't need to be extended art, but once again, you can make a variant of that for sure. Whether that be in a promo, a secondary supplemental product down the road, or whether that be in the same set that the original was printed in. But either way, it's important to make sure that we have as much chase built into playability and therefore desirability for your community, for your game's health and game's growth. Because then those cards, you don't get to see it very often, but one of the things we take our pride in Legions is that players will crack boxes to get commons. Players will crack boxes to get uncommons and a couple rares, because competitively in Legions, myself takes pride in being the designer and developer of the game, that we want to make every card count. Spending a lot of times playing TCGs over the years, 17 plus years, I learned and watched some things that were just absolutely, I found appalling, to be honest, from a design development standpoint. The amount of times that product got opened at large events or at local game stores, and boxes just got ripped open and stuff specifically for non-stop hunting of high rarity cards and high value cards, when really that all that extra stuff, which we would consider as a developer or in the industry as chaff, box chaff, like filler. We don't want people to crack our boxes, and everyone's going to rarity hunt. Inherently, you just all think chase the shiny card, chase the high rarity card, and that's right. That's true chase. That's true collectability, and that is baked into every Legions product. That's why we have renowned rares. That's why we have exalted rares. That's why we even have the ultimate chase Elysian rare, right? All of these things are put into the set. But what we take pride in is that for the community, for the player base, and even that collectability aspect, because value is inherently baked into what the players play, and therefore those cards retain value no matter their rarity, that every card has a purpose. So there's not just a bunch of filler. We craft our boxes, our sets, even our packs. My algorithms are all done by hand. So all of these are put in place to make sure that when you're cracking your boxes, it's not just a pile of commons and uncommons sitting on the table that ultimately end up in the trash. To me, looking at that, witnessing that screams poor game design. So I want our players and the people that involved in Legions along the way to know right from me that we are in a position where we want the game's health and growth to be based off of a growing and a player base that can easily access cards while still having chase. That's the delicate balance. That's the caveat. It is my job as a developer to make sure that I find that balance, that happy medium, that there's an appropriate amount of chase, whether that's in a low rarity card that's highly sought after, or a high rarity card because people just need one or two of it. And there's another thing that we baked into the collectability of the game, because we made sure that our high rarity cards were limited based off their rarity. Renowned Rares at 2, allowed in a deck of the same name, and Exalted allowed in a deck of the same name at 1. So right there, you're not having to hunt for all of these other pieces. You're not having to hunt for multiple copies of these high rarity cards. Therefore, not creating a massive paywall for new players to come in. We talked about on our last episode about creating and designing a good starter products and how to go about that, because it's the gateway of building your community and building your player base. And that's exactly what we're doing here when we translate that over to a set and creating chase. You have to have chase for the collectors, you have to have chase for the investors, and you have to have chase for the player that wants to ultimately pull or have that rush and that feeling of pulling something big, and that could potentially become expensive down the road if the community and the market deems it so. But our focus isn't on the money and the value of the cards. Our focus is on the value of the cards and how they function within the game, within the set, how they appeal to people, and what ultimately the consumer and the player wants to open in their product. And that is true chase, and that's why it is so important to build it in, and build it in a way that is healthy. Build it in a way where there's still desirability, and that boxes and packs want to continue to be open, not just on pre-release or release day, but release day plus 30 days, release day plus 60 days, 6 months later, a year later, that the boxes still have intrinsic value because there are highly playable cards in it. There's essential pieces to building high-level decks, and those are found at all varying rarities, therefore making chase of card chase throughout the entire set. And we can craft that as a designer. So that's where it is so important and so integral, being the backbone of a TCG, to make sure you have that chase. But then it's my responsibility and other game designers' responsibilities to make sure that that chase is appropriately divided and appropriately dispersed throughout the set in varying aspects of all the different rarities, all the different pull ratios, all the different textures or foils or extended arts, but ultimately in playability as well, right? So I think that pretty much sums up the importance of creating chase in TCGs and kind of how we approach it here, making Legions Realms at War. Is the player comes first. The collectability is based on the players playing it. If there's no players playing the game, if there's no growth of a player base, if there's no health or growth of the game appropriately, what are you collecting? Right? So the more the player base grows, the more that the players play the game, the more events we hold, the more it expands, the more sought after the cards become. And then on the back end for us, for development, is we can then focus on pull ratios and case hits and variations or different foiling types to give people the intrinsic value of the chase that they're so used to across other TCGs. And then that also comes down to print runs and making sure you keep that tight. Making sure you print enough for your player base, for your community, and enough for a little bit of growth, but don't exceed it to crash your collectability. So it's a continual balance. It's going back to our very beginning. It is the hustle and the passion, because I'm going to keep saying it. You gotta love it because it doesn't love you back as a designer, right? And the joy that you get is when you get to just every once in a while take a step back and appreciate how far you've come, and witnessing people and players and consumers enjoy the product that ultimately came from your thought process to your art design and direction to your tangible product that's held in their hand. That's the joy. That's the reward for all the hard work. And it starts with that passion and hustle, but it also is baked into creating appropriate chase in your game. Because without that chase, what's the point of opening boxes? If there's no thrill, people move on to something else. So, anyways, that's another long episode here, but we're glad that you tuned in. We're glad that you listened. We'll see you on the next one. Episode 9 is around the corner, and we got another good topic there. So, thanks everybody. And this was episode 8 of Inside the Creator's Mind, and we're glad you here. Until next time, guys. Have a good one.